On Sunday over a United Kingdom-based taxi driver who remained on the federal government's payroll despite migrating to the UK in 2022. According to reports, the 36-year-old Nigerian civil servant moved to the United Kingdom in 2022 but was still collecting the salary of a civil servant. Despite working as a taxi driver in the UK, he had continued to receive 150,000 naira monthly from his government's job in Nigeria due to an understanding with his boss. Recall that President Bola Tinubu ordered a crackdown on the civil servants who were still collecting salaries despite migrating abroad. Reacting to this, the civil society organization emphasizes the need for stringent measures to restore accountability and effectiveness within the civil service, calling for the prosecution of all those involved. Now let's talk this through by speaking with a media strategist consultant, Ife Onyegbule. Good morning to you, Ife. It's good to have you in the studio.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Because I remember the last time we talked about it, you were speaking blind, just like you said behind.
Yes.
So
yes,
you couldn't even, but, it was very interesting conversation we had at that time. And it felt like it was not true. It was too, loud to be true, that someone will be out of the country and still drawing salary. But this is a confirmation by BBC report. Did it strike you as a surprise?
No, it didn't strike me, even as you've just said that it was too, loud to be true. A lot of things go on. And sometimes when we look at government officials, we think that they aid and abet some of these things. But you forget that some of these, government officials, you're appointed, you meet a set of people who have been there for donkey years. They're the ones who will tell you this is how things are done in this particular place. So I'm not surprised. Of course, I stumbled on that report. It also talked about people who are still ghost workers. And you wonder, how does this even happen? So there are people who are enablers, and they're in these organizations. They're the ones who allow these things to fester for as long as anyone can think of.
And, attention has now been placed on some other persons. Those who have left the country, their names are still on the system. We have those who received scholarships from the country and never returned. I'm just trying to, break down some of these malpractices. Those whose family members were in the civil service are now late and they're still receiving their salaries. And we have also those who have been retrenched. But, these monies are still being paid to, private accounts. What does this say about the level of accountability that we have in the Nigerian civil service today?
You can just simply describe it as an anomaly. That's exactly what it is. And it's something that happens with people who lack conscience, if you understand what I'm talking about. Someone passes on. You never go to report to say, my dad, mom, grandma, grandpa has actually passed on. So take them off the... So it's just this idea of, okay, it's part of the national cake. It's my own, portion, selfishness. I need to continue to take the chunk of it. But when you look at it from the person who is at that receiving end, getting the salaries and all of that, as I said to you folks the other time, free money is actually sweet. No one is going to come to tell you, oh, stop paying me this money, because it's free. And they're not working for it. It now rests on the authorities as it is. And that's talking about the bodies who are in charge of these things. How often do you take a look at the data, the document, the portal? Who goes there to check? What happens to quality control? Who is checking? Who has actually left? Who has been retrenched? Who has been retired? Who has passed on? Who exactly is checking? So it simply means that we just we just sit down and allow the system run on its own. And it has gone on for years. Who is actually going to bail the cat? That's the question we're asking now. How are we going to redirect? It's a total paradigm shift as it is. Things need to change. And I'm glad that the president has come up to say, we need to do something about this. I know him as a man who doesn't pay lip service. As he has come out to say this is what's going to happen, is for his foot soldiers to say, yes, let's put it down, put our foot down to say, this is what is going to happen and something needs to be done about it.
Yeah, so this taxi driver actually blew the whistle on his own self, even though his identity, is protected by the BBC. But then, he continued to receive 150,000 naira monthly from his government job in Nigeria due to an understanding with his boss.
His boss who is his relative.
Okay, so could you help us, demystify or expatiate further on who this kind of boss is? Because you said someone who is checking, who is monitoring,
that's right,
who is auditing some of these things. So exactly what kind of boss would he have been? Because certainly it won't be the first and the last to have done this.
So this is a boss who has simply just explained who he is. Now, this is something that has come to the fore. It's in the open. Everyone's talking about it. Imagine for BBC to carry such a story. So it's everywhere. Do you have an idea other things that would have gone on with this particular person if your own relative can come out to say, it's just because I had an understanding with my boss who's my relative? And that's why I'm so skeptical about people bringing in their relatives, friends, brothers, sisters into the system. I'm not a party to it. And I say to people, yes, if you have people who are qualified to do the job, go and apply like every other person and come in, officially like every other person comes in. And you have to follow the same process. But when you bring in people from all over, just because they're your relatives, this is exactly what happens. Someone leaves the system for 2 years. He was drawing 150,000. That's about maybe $100 and maybe 80 pounds as it is. And he's been drawing that, and he comes out to say it. Well, I just think that the authorities just need to be on the case. I don't blame the driver, who's the UK driver, who's coming up to say this. It is that boss, who's his relative, that should take the blame. And they need to investigate and find out exactly some of the things that have happened in the course of what we're talking about.
But I believe to an extent, there should be a level of blame on that driver, because there should have been an active step.
If I give you free money, will you come to tell me no?
There should have been an active step to at least, even if it's, to inform them that he is resigning, he will be leaving the country. If you are going on a study leave, there are conditions attached to that. And recently also, the head of service also mentioned that due to this latest development, she had to send a circular out for a head count of individuals in departments and agencies. And many of them ran back from the United Kingdom to say, oh, they are around.
We're still at work.
We're still at work. We're still working. This goes a lot to show, the average Nigerian attitude.
No, the system is porous.
To work.
Because you want to eat your cake and have it at the same time. How possible is that? You're somewhere else receiving money. I heard the gentleman was boasting to say, well, I don't care even if I lose what it is that I have here in Nigeria. At least I'm earning better there. Okay, you're earning better. Why don't you leave this so that there will be space for someone else to come in and start to earn that peanut that you didn't want in the first place? But you've just talked about it. Because of that head count, everybody came back. And I'll tell you, this is something that has happened for a long time. It's not like the public or the private sector, where, of course, I've operated in for a while. You clock in. You get paid for what it is that you work. You have to be there. You have to appear. You've got to clock in. You've got to sign the attendance so people know you come to work. It's not in a place where sometimes you don't even appear at work. But at the end of the month, the government pays. I've always had a problem with that because people just relax. Whether they do the job or not, they get paid. And you look at it. Shall we continue in sin so that grace may abound? I don't think it's something proper. But as I've said, for the government, the federal government, to say this is what will happen. It's not just about one man who has actually come in. Because people will say, is it the first to be president for him to have noted this? It's happened for a long time. But this is his term. And he has said, look, we need to do something about it. Because when you look at it, monies are frittered away in so many ways. You just talked about people who have died. No one is going to check to say, when did this person die? We need to stop paying whatever it is that we're paying to this person. People will continue to receive those monies until the system, the database, is actually overhauled and we get to do the right thing.
And this speaks to the character and integrity and patriotism of a typical Nigerian, because we see most of the Nigerians that are within waiting to jackpot, and those that have jackpot, so to speak, they tend to see Nigeria, they paint Nigeria in the bad light on social media, on their tongues, and every available avenue that they have, they paint Nigeria bad, and they make it appear like the Nigerian government is entirely bad. Now we are seeing Nigerians who are doing this. We suppose that someone who is in a better system, so to speak, in a better system, still drawing salary from Nigeria, and then this same person will still badmouth a Nigerian government, or the Nigerian government, or Nigeria as a geographical expression. So what does this say about us as a people vis-a-vis the way we treat ourselves and the country?
Okay, so the same way you hear people go out to badmouth Nigeria, there are many ambassadors of Nigeria who are telling good stories about us. And I prefer to focus, you know, lately, I'm very intentional about focusing on the positives, you know, about Nigeria. Because you ask yourself the question, if it's so bad, I know it's bad, some people are going to, you know, crucify me because of this. Bad, I know it's bad, you know, but then why do you have people who come in and they make this place their home?
That's right.
That's the truth. And I say to people, you and I are the government, because the people who are at the helm of affairs were picked from amongst us. So there is no difference. It's just that that's it. It's just that they have more resources to work with. Yes, I know things are truly difficult. And you don't stop people from going out to talk about whatever it is that they want to talk about. We also have, in equal measure, people who are talking good about Nigeria. Now, how does this, or what does this say about us? It just describes who that person is. I think it's individual. You don't lump people together to say, these people are bad, or that people, or those people are not good. It's about the individual. What are you talking about your country wherever it is that you go? Recently, I had a conference somewhere, one of the African countries, and it was amazing. When people heard that you're Nigerian, there's a way they get to look at you. They treat you nice. They're so happy. They're talking to you. They're asking you, oh, we love the clothes that you have in Nigeria. Did you come with some of your Nigerian attires? They just want to relate with you. And when you even get out, talk about going to Europe and some other places, there are people who love Nigerians, who love the, you know, the doggedness when you talk about. Yeah. I saw a gentleman, I think in the US, who was talking about Nigerians, and he says, look, when you want to talk about the best of anything in Africa, look towards Nigeria. Is it academics? Whatever, in the different sectors, talk about Nigeria. So Nigeria, if you look at it, some people are talking bad about her, others are talking so good about her. So it's about what people choose to listen to, and I want to focus on the positive.
Makes sense.
And if you look at this situation, what's going to be the fate of the civil service? Because in that report by the BBC, the driver mentioned that he decided to leave the door open.
In case he comes back.
After how many years? He was so confident that they were not going to find out about this situation, except he had spoken about it. It also, speaks to the fact that the age that we have in the civil service today is may not be the internationally accepted standards. And he was going to come back at probably 40, 50 years, coming back to the Nigerian civil service to give back what?
So that's the acid test for the government. If you say you want to do something, you want to clamp down on something, it's important for you to say it and mean it. That's the truth. This gentleman is not the only one. There may be others who have been doing this for years. I wonder the effrontery for him to even come up to say, this is why I did it. I left the door open. And you have someone who's aiding and abetting you, leaving the doors open for you so that you can come back. I'm sure when the madam talked about the head count, everybody decided to run back to say, I am here. So you just see them for a week or two and they jet back to where it is that they're from. So for me, it's about the system. The system needs to be purged. The system needs to be sanitized. The database needs to be overhauled. And until that happens, colleagues will just be going around in circles.
Does it not look like a mirage to you? Because most new administrations also carry out an audit of the civil service. Mm-hmm. Yeah, new government. Oh, we have a bloated workforce. We need to, retrench some people. We need to ensure that ghosts are not receiving salaries and all of that. But does it not put to, test or doubt the credibility of these auditors themselves? Because if you say you are auditing and then you give the report, or maybe in the process of auditing, they also got infected, with the evil in the civil service. I don't know how to even put it because there's so many things, right in my head. It appears every single element of the civil service has been infected, doesn't it?
Okay, you just talked about the auditors. Are the auditors Americans?
Whoever they are.
They're Nigerians. So you're Nigerian, I'm Nigerian. So it's about the system. That system needs to be purged. And I tell you, if the government wants to do it, it's about the will. Do you want to do it?
But you just said Nigeria.
You will step
They are going to make use of Nigeria. Or are you invariably saying that maybe they should bring a foreign and external auditor? It's
not possible. Everything that we want, we have here. So you need to find those people who are, there are people in the civil service who are upright. Don't you believe me?
Maybe in the minority.
So why don't you deal with those people? Find a good number of those persons and use them to sanitize the system. You can't bring something or someone from outside to say you want to sanitize a system where people have operated in for close to 3-4 decades. You must use the people inside there. And there have to be penalties. There have to be consequences, for the things that people do. So I'm saying to you, it is the will. If the government, the federal government, I know that the man who's there, if he says he's going to do something, he wants his name to be written in gold, he definitely will find a way around it.
But there is this issue of IPPIS, and people kicked against it. There's issue of TSA when it was introduced by the Goodluck Jonathan administration. People are still beating that same system because they believe that this will help streamline and guard against, ghost workers and all of that. But here we are, we're talking about it. They're still beating the system.
People will kick against whatever it is that you do. That is the truth. Remember when it was COVID that we all had to stay home, or some people had to stay home, we were out working and all of that. Some people said, look, I'm not interested in whatever vaccine or whatever it is that you're giving people. They stood against it. Some didn't take it up until today. I don't want us to go into that conversation. So I'm trying to say that people will kick against something. You just talked about TSA. In my state where I am, my governor does not play with TSA. You don't have a choice. Whatever happens, you have to go through that TSA. That is it. Even before you have any conversation with him, you have to deal with that issue of TSA. And I think some other governors are doing that also. But I tell you, these things that have happened, they've had this unbroken sequence for a long time, decades. You're not going to stop it in one day. You will start. The journey of 1,000 miles, it actually starts with a step. And I think this is a step that has happened, and it's one step in the right direction. So it's just for us to support it. In our little corners where we are, even in private organizations, you find that people subvert a lot of things. Right. People do all sorts of things, and it's about greed. It's about greed, and it's what the society has actually, we've become so monetized. Everyone is thinking about money. You're saying to someone, okay, there's a job opening somewhere and so-and-so person is needed. These are the requirements. The person is asking you, how much are they going to pay me? Are they paying me in hard currencies and all of that? But you're not saying to yourself, what am I bringing to the table? I always say to people, place value on yourself first. That value that you place on yourself, it's a premium, and it will attract what it is that you're worth and more.
And due to this minimum wage conversations, we've had talks about the productivity of the average Nigerian worker. But for this particular incident, let's talk about accountability, how we are going to retrieve this money, if it's actually, possible. The head of service said that some of those that were not available for that verification exercise had to, resign from the system, which is a step in the right direction, if I would say. But it's not only those who had to, go and come back. What about those that were authorizing this? How do we bring them to book? I'm sure the elder brother or the uncle of this taxi driver is still in Nigeria. Where do we start from as regards ensuring, deterrence, ensuring that these individuals that even aided or better this situation should be brought to book?
No, you're talking about recovery, and I'm laughing. How are you going to do that? The money that's gone is gone. I don't want to be a pessimist as it is, because except that man wants to be sincere to himself, he now has to gather the money and say, look, I'm paying this back, and it will give him a lot of credibility. But who wants to do that? When money has actually left the coffers and gets into somewhere, it's going to be difficult for you to get that. The idea now is, how do you stop this from happening over and over again? You just mentioned the gentleman who is actually his boss and his relative. How did he even mention that the man is his relative? You've only just put the man in trouble. If that man is still in the system, I think they need to go after him, investigate, and find out exactly some other things that have happened. I'm also thinking, if he left, did he go on sabbatical? Sometimes you get paid something, if you live for a while officially to say I'm going to be away for X number of years, if that's what has happened, that's fine. But if he just woke up, picked up his bag and left, I don't think that's something nice. So the system just needs, I keep talking about the system, we keep going back and forth on this issue of the system. It needs to be done. There was a time they talked about, sanitizing the civil service. I don't know how far that has gone, but so much is going on there. You waste man hours. You waste the time of government, and government pays you for that time. You're doing some other things. You have other businesses that you're doing. You have other things that you're doing. Yes, people will say you need to have other streams of income. But for me, I say to people, even with the people that I work with now, I don't know what else you're doing apart from the job that you're paid to do. You need to focus on that and give it your best. But if you find that you're not getting fulfillment and you're not getting well remunerated, as it is, many of them say, oh, the money is too small. I say to them, why don't you just put in your paper and take a walk? It's better for you to go to a place where you are appreciated than where you think you're tolerated. But I tell you, as some of them will say to me, DG, it's not easy. Where do you want us to go? And I say to them, emotional blackmail. There must be a place where you can go to. You cannot say, this is too small, I'm not getting this, I'm not getting that, and you're sitting tight there and not giving.
They're probably not used to the checks and balances that you may.
And they probably don't have KPIs also, because you go to places where they give you your key performance, index or indices as it is. You've got to work towards that. What are your deliverables? What are you doing at the end of the quarter? What would you say that you have achieved as a person? I'm not sure they're seeing that in the service. So something needs to be done. Something needs to give. And I hope it gives as hard as can be.
Well, that Olamide mentioned the issue of national minimum wage, which we now talk about as a living wage. And we see Labour, federal government, the tripartite committee, all jumping, aiming for each other's throats. So do you feel that this issue of new minimum wage will not be a thing of issue if we have the workforce streamlined? Those who are alive are actually the ones working, because I use the word alive advisedly, because if you are still alive and then you are not there, you're collecting money from outside, I assume that you're not alive because you're still a ghost worker. So what do you think what conversation do you think this might bring into the haggling about what the national minimum wage should be?
I don't want to agree to that word haggling. They need to just come up with something. And I tell you, the national minimum wage, if it happens now, even with the way that we are, with the stipend that some people are still collecting, look at what it is when we talk about purchasing power right there in the market. When this minimum wage or national minimum wage, when they meet at a center and say, this is what we have agreed, they will never get to agree as it is. But if they agree, will it change exactly where we say we are? That's the big question we need to ask ourselves. No matter how much it is, we'll still have some of the problems that we have.
That's right. Well, so many things to talk about because this is quite an ongoing conversation, and we'll always talk about it. I love the fact that we talked about it the last time, and we're talking about it today, and we hope that there is a final solution, lasting solution, bring brought to bear. Media strategist and consultant Ife Onyegbule, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Right. So coming up, we went to the streets to ask Nigerians, can you spend over